Hello guys and welcome to the most complete Next.js 13 series where we are going to talk about all the advanced topics and all the main features of Next.js 13. So in today's part we are going to talk about everything related to routing. So don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for the other videos regarding Next.js. It's going to be a long series. We're going to start from the basics and we're going to cover basically everything you need to start building your projects with Next.js. So I already have my Next.js app running and I removed everything so it will be clean and easy to follow. So we have here the basic layout and we have a page here with a div of home, and this is basically our route. So Next.js 13 is going to follow a folder-based routing structure. As you can see here in this image, the approach they take is to have folders that determine the routes. So for example, we have the app folder over here, and here we can have branches to our routes. So for example, we have a dashboard here, and we have a leaf of analytics and a leaf of settings, and then we have a leaf of password and profile inside it, and so on and so on. This one is the dynamic route that we're going to cover in a moment. But just for the example, let's create here in the app folder. So let's go here. Let's create a folder here, and let's say that this is going to be dashboard. And to create a route, what we need to do is inside the dashboard, we can create a new file, and we're going to say that this is going to be page.tsx. And this way we create routes. So now I can export a functional component. So let's say tsrface, and we can call it, for example, dashboard like this. And now when I save this file and go back to our application, let's go to localhost 3000 slash dashboard. And you can see that now I have created a new route that's called dashboard. So as you can see in this image, where we can actually nest the routes and we create folders within each other. So for example, you can see that the app is the route basically, and inside it we have a dashboard, and inside it we have settings, and we have like a segment and leaf segment, and everything is divided by slashes, and this what makes the URL, basically the URL path. So let's create as the settings folder as well. So we can even say new file, and let's say settings, and inside it let's create page.tsx. Okay, so let's export a functional component tsrfac. Let's call it settings like this. And when we navigate back to our application, we can now go to slash dashboard slash settings like this. And now we have also the settings route. So let's say that I want to go to something. Let's say that I make a mistakes and I go to, instead of settings, I go to, I don't know, profile. And we don't have this route at the moment. So when I navigate to this route, you will see that now we have a 404 page error, and it says this page could not be found because this route doesn't exist in our application. So as you can see here, there are some examples for the file conventions. So we have layout, page, loading, not found, error, global error, route, template, default. All of this can be customized, and all of this can be customized in each segment of the path. So I can create actually loading pages and error pages inside settings, inside dashboard, inside the route layout. Basically everywhere I can customize these files to make my own custom files basically. So from the component hierarchy, so you can see that in the left side we have an example of the files. So you can see that if we have a segment that has a layout, template, error, loading, not found, and page, this is what's going to be translated into the React code. So we have the layout that is wrapping everything. Then we have a template. We have error boundary with a fallback to error, basically this file over here. We have a suspense with fallback to loading, which is the loading over here. We have error boundary of not found, and inside it we have a page. So you can see that all the files that you create are going to be translated to React code, basically. And of course, all of this is going to be nested. So if you have all these files inside settings folder, and it's going to be inside dashboard folder, so you can see the hierarchy is going to be translated accordingly to your nesting, of course. All right, let's play a little bit with the layouts and the pages. So let's say that in my root, I want to have here, this is the children that is being rendered, and you can see that this is the root layout with the HTML and the body. So let's say that in the root layout, I want to have a side over here. Side, and let's say that this is going to be some kind of menu, for example. So now when I save this file, let's go back to our root route over here. And now you can see that we have a menu and a home, and basically the home page. So this is what being rendered from the home page. Now let's style it a little bit to actually be like an actual site. So let's say that here I want to have a style. It's not recommended to do it inline, but just for the purpose for this video, I'm going to do the styles inline like this. So let's say that here we have display of flex. So they will be side by side, and here I want to have some style as well. So let's say that I want to have I don't know, some padding. So let's say 10 pixel. And let's make it maybe background color. Let's make it light gray, for example. Uh, Light green or whatever. Light green. Okay, so we have this side over here in the root layout. So now let's try to go to the dashboard route. So let's go over here, /dashboard, and you can see that I still have this menu because it was defined in our layout over here. But beside that, I can also have layouts for each of my segments. So for example, in the dashboard, I want to have a navigation bar, for example. So let's create a new file here. Let's call it layout.tsx. And let's actually go to, you know what, let's create it from scratch, tsrface. And let's say that in my layout, I have a nav at the top, and I need to pass the children like we are doing here. So children, let's copy this, go to here, and let's say that this is going to take children, and children is going to be React node like this. And what we can do now is, so we're going to have a nav over here. I don't know, let's wrap it with fragment or something. And let's take the nav here, and let's place the children like this. And let's say I am a navbar like this. Okay, so now we have a navbar. And let's add here a section like this. All right, so now we have a navbar at the top. We have the children, which is basically the page. So now let's try to navigate to the nested settings page. So if we go to /dashboard/settings, we are going to have the side layout, and we're going to have the navbar layout, and everything that is nested in the dashboard is going to receive these both layouts basically. Now let's do also something interesting with the metadata. So let's go back to our root layout and layout. Okay, so you can see that here in the layout we have metadata that we are exporting, and basically you can see that we have here a title of create next app, which is displayed over here, and we have a description as well. So let's say that for the dashboard segment, I want to have a different metadata. So I have two options. I can put a new metadata inside the layout over here, or I can put it inside the page itself, and then the metadata inside this page is not going to be affected by, like the settings route is not going to be affected by the metadata. But if I placed it in the layout like this, so let's copy, for example, this metadata thing and let's paste it over here. Let's import the metadata from Next, and let's just call it, for example, I don't know, dashboard. Okay. So now when I'm in the settings route, I have a new metadata that is affected from here, from this object. And of course, it's going to be as well for all the nested children in the dashboard segment. So if I want to affect only the dashboard, I can remove it from here. That's this import. And we can go to the page itself. Let's paste the metadata here. And now I still going to have the dashboard title for this page, but if I go to settings, for example, so let's try to go to /settings. Now you can see that the settings segment is going to take the metadata from the root layout, because we are not passing it over here. So this leaf is going to be affected from this. All right, so I hope it makes sense. Now let's add navigation to our application. So we need some navigation to our navbar, right? So what we can do, let's actually go to the root layout. I'm going to copy an example from the docs, and I'm going to introduce you some concept of client components and server components. So first of all, what is actually a server component and where it's being used? So by default, everything is a server component. You can see that all the pages here are server components. So basically, all the HTML is rendered on the server, and then it's just being displayed to the client. So a quick test that we can do is to go to here and view page source. You can see here that I have all the HTML. So basically, you can see here the menu, okay, and the div, the home div, everything is being displayed here, as you can see. All right, so how do we make a client component is by using use client. So let's go to create our first client component inside the components folder. So let's create here a navbar. So say even a nav, it's enough, .tsx. All right, so I'm going to paste here. This is the navbar from the docs, all right, and it's going to receive nav links. You can see here use client, which is going to define this is going to be a client component. And in client component, we can do everything we can do in basic React applications. So we can use hooks, we can use state, everything that just a regular React app can do. So here we are using use path name, and this is why we need this to be a client component. because use path name is a hook. So let's define real quick the nav links. So let's say here nav links are going to be actually I need to define the nav link itself. So let's say type of nav link is going to be equal. So the nav link is going to have href and a name. All right. So let's say here name is going to be a string and href is going to be a string like this. And we can say that nav links are going to be a nav link array like this. Cool. So we have the nav links defined. Now let's use this client component inside our server component. So let's go back to the dashboard layout. Yeah. So inside this navbar, I'm going to use my client component. Say nav like this. Nav. So why it's not finding it? Nav, and it's called. So it's not export default, just navigation. Okay, so it actually was correct. So let's say navigation, and I'm going to import it like this. And as you can see, we have also absolute path with Next.js by default, which is very convenient. And now we need to pass the nav links, right? So nav links are going to be an array. So let's say that the first link is going to have href to, so let's say dashboard like this, and it's going to have a name of dashboard like this. And let's copy this and create another link to dashboard slash settings, and this one is going to be called settings. Okay, so let's go back to the navigation. I just want to show you that we are using here. First of all, we're using spatial element from Next, which is called link. This is going to be this is like an href, but we're not going to have a full page reload with this link. And another thing that we do here, we're checking if the link is active and if the path name is going to be equals to the link.href, then we're going to change the styles, but this is not going to work. So let's delete this thing and let's say style like this. And let's say that font, the font weight, let's say that if it's going to be is active, I'm going to say bold. Oops, I'm going to say bold like this. Otherwise, I'm going to say normal like this. And this should actually work now. So let's go to slash dashboard. And you can see already that the dashboard is the active link, and this the font weight is bold. And if we go to settings, now the URL is changed, and now settings is the active link. So basically we are in the settings page. So when I switch, the bold text is changing according to my URL. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is route groups. So this is just some theory about how you can organize your files, your folders, sorry. So you can see here that, for example, we have here a marketing folder that is going to contain both of these routes. And we have a shop folder over here. But you can notice that from this example, the marketing and the shop is not going to affect the URL because they are wrapped in parentheses. So if you wrap a folder with parentheses, it's not going to affect the URL. And basically, you can create these folders to organize your files as you want. So you can imagine that this is going to be just for organizing purpose. Okay, so you can even use these parentheses to actually create multiple root layouts. So you can see in this example, we're in the app folder and we have marketing and shop, which both of them contain a layout, but you can think about this layout as a root layout, and this one is a root layout as well. So in this case, you need to create the layout like we created here with the HTML and the body, and each of these layouts are going to be different, completely different layouts. So in case you have completely different app segments, you can create multiple root layouts and create benefit the routes that you want. So like it's being divided completely. All right, so another small example I want to show you is how you can create dynamic params. Okay, so let's say that inside settings, we have another folder like this. So let's create a folder and let's create brackets like this, and let's say ID. All right, and inside this ID folder, we're going to create a page. So page.tsx, and let's create tsr FACE like this. So this is going to be a settings ID page. Okay, I don't know why. This is what I want to do. Now let's actually try to console log these props over here. So let's say log props like this. Let's wrap it with parentheses. And let's try to go to this route. So how can I access it? Let's try to access it by settings slash something. So let's say /1. And you can see that I have access to this settings ID page. And let's see the console. Okay, so remember we are on the server, so I need to check my server terminal, not the browser. So let's look at this. Inside props, we have params, and inside params, we have ID of 1. Okay, so the ID is equals to 1 because remember this ID is dynamic, and I provided here the dynamic param like this. So let's say that, I don't know, let's call it ABC and go to this route. And now you can see that the ID is ABC. Okay, so when we do a dynamic route like this, we have access to the route param from the props, basically. Okay, now the next thing, I want to talk more about theory. We're not going to see examples because I'm not going to create loading states, but I want to talk about loading UI and streaming, right? So the idea behind it is actually to have a partial content with loading state. So basically you can see that this is the content that is being loaded, but I already have all the other content, okay, in the page. So the user is going to wait only for the content that is being loaded. Basically, this is the idea of streaming. So let's say that we have here, you can look at this example. So we have a dashboard with loading file, okay? And basically what it does behind the scenes is you can see at this example that this structure is going to be the header, the side nav suspense with fallback of loading, so the loading page. And now when we go to this route, you can see that the content will be displayed, and the loading will be affected only for this page that is being loaded. Okay, so only for the part that is being loaded. So you basically divide the data to chunks and you display the data as it's being loaded. So this is actually a really good example. So you can see here that we're inside app slash dashboard slash page tsx. Okay, and for example, we have two components with which is post feed and weather. Okay, and here we have the section, and uh, both of them are wrapped with suspense, and it's going to fall back to this loading paragraph. So you can see that if one of these component is going to be loaded, it's going to be displayed on the screen already. So the component that is finished loading is going to be shown. The component is not finished, it's going to show loading. So basically, they are not dependent on each other. So basically, you will see the data faster and you will have a better user experience. Now let's talk about the error file. Okay, so we have a convention to do error.js or tsx like this. And how the error is working is basically very similar to how the loading is working. So for example, we have an error in this page. So you can see that it's actually being wrapped with error boundary from React, but only at the component where the errors actually occurred. Okay, so very similar to the loading. Now I want to talk about, in shortly, I want to talk about some advanced topic that is called parallel routes. I haven't tested it in my code yet, but from the theory, what I understand is that we have basically, you can see that we have this at team and at analytics. So for complex UIs that, for example, have multiple components, you can have independent components and independent state and loading and error in the same route, basically. So you can see that both of these are shared in the same URL, so in the same segment, but they are completely independent from each other. So both of these have loading state, both of these have error state, and you can see that, for example, they are divided. So if this component is going to cause an error, this component is not going to be affected by it. So it's a very cool pattern. You can read about it more in parallel routes. Okay, so to wrap up today's section, let's go through some project organization and file co-location section. I'm not going to talk about the API routes in this part because we haven't learned about data fetching and stuff like that. So let's just take a brief look at this section, and we're going to summarize everything we have learned in this tutorial. So you can see that we have here, let's look at some examples. So what I did, for example, for this purpose, you can see that I'm having the components folder outside of the app folder. Okay, so in this case, from what they show here, they have everything inside the app folder. So basically everything inside the app folder can become a route, but it's not going to become a route if you don't define a page.tsx file within it. So if you want, you can actually use the components closer to your routes, basically. So you can see that this thing is not going to be a route. This thing is not going to be a route. Only this thing is going to be a route, and this thing is, of course, not going to be a route, and this thing is not going to be a route as well. But you have the API folder that you can use, and then you can define here the backend routes. And by creating a route.ts or JS files, you are actually creating your backend API routes. Okay, so so inside API you can create route files. Inside app you can create all the other pages that we talk about. And the db.js is of course not going to be a route. So for example, let's look at this project that we have here. Let's close everything. So let's say that I have a huge application and I want actually, and I have some components that are related only to this dashboard section and only to the dashboard page. So what I can do is I can easily create a new folder here, let's say components, like this, and I can place all my components inside this folder, and they are not going to be affected. They are not going to be affecting the routes basically. So it's very convenient, and you can structure your project however you want to do it. So let's say this is going to be widget.tsx, for example, and I can use place all of my dashboard components inside this folder. Okay, so just you can just play with your project structure however you like. You can, as we said before, you can make route groups like this. So we have, for example, the admin and the marketing, and so on and so on. You can even use src directory if you want to. And yeah, okay, so I think this is enough for today's section. And don't forget to subscribe to get notified when I continue this Next.js series. The next thing we're going to cover is data fetching, so it will be very interesting. So I hope you liked it, and I will see you the next one. Bye guys, and thank you for watching.